it is quite evident that a black ops program began in the 1930s, and it really built momentum in the 1940s. This involved close encounters of the fourth kind. This is actual human disappearances, human alien abduction deals. So when this phenomenon began to unfold, is very well documented by people like David Jacobs, The Threat, the book by Raymond D. Fowler, The Watchers. Both of these books are huge, and they're very well documented of all the people who have claimed to be abducted by aliens. But the cracks in the facade are very noticeable. Many researchers have noted that some of these people actually see other things when they go through hypnotic regression, and their testimony under hypnosis reveals more details, showing there's been a mind wipe, showing that there were actual individuals in costumes around them while they were medicated and sedated, and their memories are of aliens and green little men and all that. But sometimes people see beyond the immediate, which is well illuminated, and they can see further into the shadowed area, but nobody cares because they think they're unconscious or sedated or paralyzed. But these people see and remember, and they see doctors in white lab coats, and they see like G-men in black suits in the back, right in the same room with the aliens that are doing these implant operations and all that. This is so widely documented and mentioned by so many different people that it can't be a figment of their imagination.
You're talking about hypnotic regression.
Yes, the people that have seen these little glimpses that's telling them that this isn't real. These aren't really aliens. These are people in costumes doing this bullshit. And well, this is exactly what a black ops operation would do. If you have an agenda that cannot be legalized, you can't get proper funding through the natural channels, and you have to hide and conceal what you're doing from your own government, then different black ops groups would also have to have an intelligence apparatus in place to throw off misinformation, to throw misinformation out there and to muddle the waters. And what better way to hide a human abduction program, sending innocent people to facilities in the underworld to undergo surgeries and implants and tests and blood transfusions and all kind, and the extraction of fetal material and fetuses, and then send them back up with altered memories under sedation, making if they did remember anything, they would remember aliens, little green people, but those are just humans in suits. This misinformation, while you're doing that, you're also supporting those social media and cinema producers that are putting out these narratives of aliens from outer space and all that. So it's a two-pronged cover story. I don't believe for a second that the Ancient Aliens franchise is making enough money to do what they do, travel all over the world, do all these things. No, they're being financed because it's necessary for those black ops organizations to cover their track. And the best way is to have the general public believe that ETs are among us doing these things when it's actually a breakaway civilization. It is another human civilization in our underworld doing these activities for whatever reason. But they weren't UFOs. These were technologically advanced materials from a breakaway civilization in our underworld. They were staged to make it look like a UFO crash. U.S. military was even told the site where they would be staged, they're already on location with Oppenheimer to go scoop it up. They scoop it up and they send a convoy to Area 51, ultimately to Hangar 18, which never housed anything. The real materials were sent to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and there's several books about this topic and about how secret this facility used to be. It's not so secret now, but this is where they developed titanium and Velcro and all these things that they got from this supposed alien assist. Now, the whole idea, though, was to get the general public to finally believe that there is a conspiracy and that the government and military are trying to hide the existence of aliens. This was the reverse psychology method that was used by military intelligence. They wanted the public to realize that, oh, there is a secret, they're just not going to tell us that. So UFOs and aliens must be real. So as long as the public will always entertain that idea, they'll never search deeper to figure out what's really going on. That genetic materials are being used by a breakaway civilization in our underworld that's been there for a very long time. And they have been genetically tampering with us for a very long period of time. And they agreed to provide technological knowledge and materials in exchange for the allowance of the abduction of humans for a period of time. I don't know how long that period of time is, but I agree that UFOs exist. There's no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind.
For sure they do. Yeah,
even the flying saucers exist.
Yep.
My only point of contention is every bit of this is terrestrial, not extraterrestrial.
Right.
It's actually subterrestrial.
Right.
And that all of this is misinformation. I believe we live in a construct. I believe there's no escape. I believe we're here.
Yep.
And this is why NASA is so necessary, because it keeps the public believing in the idea, freedom to live a Star Trek life. You're going to be really hard put to find any evidence of UFO activity, of anything being seen going in and out our atmosphere, because about 99.9% of all UFO sightings by military and civilians is always objects coming in and out of bodies of water or valleys and mountains. It shows them they lower into bodies of water. They submerge into water, or they submerge into the sides of mountains, or what appear to be the sides of mountains. And this isn't normal. This isn't normal. If these things were really from space and coming from other star systems and all that, which I don't believe, then we would have a lot more. We would have a lot more information on that. You wouldn't be able to hide that. There would be too many eyewitnesses. I mean, these things have been seen hovering and flying through the sky for hours on end sometime, but they don't go in and out the atmosphere. They go in and out the ground and the ocean. The Nazi scientists that were not executed and that signed the contract with the United States to go ahead and use their scientific expertise in the American military branches, they were brought to Texas. And in Texas, they were debriefed. And in Texas, they were given new identities. They were given basically a whole new lives. They were allowed to bring their families over. And many of them were relocated to El Paso and then New Mexico. And these scientists worked on multiple different projects, and many of them later ended up in 1957 in the NASA projects. But this was NASA. The NASA projects were 10 years after this supposed staged alien assist. After reading this book, which my publisher Paul Tice of Booktree in San Diego recommended this book. And he sent it to me. He says, you got to check this book out because I know this man personally. He's a doctor, and they're talking about taking his medical license. He has already given about 3,000 lectures, and he has proven on camera to remove alien-like people who claim to have been abducted by aliens, and they say that they know they got a chip inside of them. He goes in there and extracts it. He finds them, and he photographed them. He found out some amazing things. One, they're biomechanical, and they try to get away from the scalpel blade. They move under the skin.
Really? So they're alive?
Yes. They're like a parasite, but they're not. They're computerized, and they're protected. Once he breaks away the little biomechanical suit that they have that they can move in, it's a capsule that's protected in some biosac. And he destroyed several before he figured it out. But when he cuts the biosac off under a camera, and he films it all, when he cuts the biosac off, the implant on the side is technological. It's got little wires and stuff, but it instantly disintegrates on contact with air. So he learned how to open up these biosacs by inside a container that is full of the person's blood. As long as it's water mixed with their blood, the biosac doesn't self-destruct. And he's able to open it, peel it all out, and pull it out, and it's some type of microcircuitry. It's technological. It's not alive. It's not a real parasite. It's technologically advanced. And it's something that's probably not beyond our ability today to manufacture. So this is the book. Dr. Roger Leir. Yeah, this man has put his life on the line to reveal this stuff. Because a lot of people have come to him. A lot of people have come to him. I'm gonna see if you can see this.
Yeah, let's see if we can. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. The Aliens and the Scalpel. Revised. Oh, it's a second edition. Okay, cool. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
It's 100%. I mean, like I said, I'm on board with everything that's reported. I take people at face value. If you say you experience an anomaly,
Yeah.
and there's some evidence for it, and it's really changed the dynamic of your life, your behavior, and all that, I'm going to believe you. And when I see hundreds of accounts spread through 4 or 5 books, and I pretty much get a gist that, okay, this is a real phenomenon, I can go ahead and accept this at face value. But there's nothing in any of these accounts that prove anything is coming from space.
Yeah.
It's still all terrestrial or subterrestrial, and that's the only position that I want to take, because it seems to me that if the powers that be are allowing Hollywood and Bollywood and all these producers to put out all these movies on alien invasions and they're so successful and they get so much media attention, that's a red flag for me. If the media so willingly promotes something, then it's probably not true. So, and this is something that I have to take into consideration. The world, if something is really true, the media is going to avoid it like the plague. It's just that our world reports the exact opposite of the truth all the time. So it really baffles me sometimes when people are so willing to believe certain concepts that are promoted so loudly by the establishment, by Scientifica, by the media, and they never second guess these things. And it really troubles me sometimes that people who believe they're actually scientific are only demonstrating a deeper level of faith than Christians even have that Jesus ever walked. It's pure faith that you accept that these scientists 10 years ago established this based off mathematical constructs of scientists from the 1950s, based off extrapolations of discoveries and observations from 1910s. Almost every single thing that we accept as true that's reported by science actually falls apart with greater scrutiny. And yet people have faith that all this is real, but they don't consider it faith because it's supposed to be science. And I'm absolutely convinced that many of the written materials that we have that resurfaced after 1764 were hidden in the underworld. And then 138 years later, when they expected a real hard reset but only received a soft reset in 1902, again, they unleashed their libraries. This is very common. Anybody can Google these things and see just how many libraries appeared in the world in 1902, 1903, and 1904. But anybody can do a search on the Fortune 500 companies that exist today, and you will find that almost 90% of them existed in another form earlier in the 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s, and ultimately almost every one of them came into existence in 1902.
Wow. So maybe 1901 was the actual clearing of the board, so to speak.
Well, it was an expected clearing of the board, but nothing happened but 3 volcanoes and several earthquakes, and red dust and red mud and red rain blanketed the entire world, and there were fireballs that fell from the sky that were documented all over the world. But it wasn't a hard reset. There wasn't massive loss of life. Only 3 volcanic eruptions, and the total death toll was like 50,000 people. That's not bad at all. Sure. For a worldwide event. Same thing happened in 1764, 138 years earlier. You already know, it's the Phoenix phenomenon. You've seen this on my channel a lot, but I agree. They know the schedule, and they hide in the underworld. They have their facilities. These facilities are ancient. They're old. And I believe they keep these libraries down there. They keep these innovations. They keep, it's so weird after these Phoenix years, how these major inventions that have changed the world suddenly are introduced. Like 1902, air conditioning, all of a sudden. 1902, there's so many inventions that were just thrown into the world. Fluorescent lighting. 1903, Harley Davidson motorcycles. I'm really not doing it service, even trying to name any right now. I have a video that names like over 60 of them. And it doesn't make any sense unless all these things pre-existed. And then they were brought back up when it was noticed that the coast was clear. the mining cities and metallurgy cities that are mentioned in the Sumerian king list, in the Pentapolis of Bad Tabira and Shuruppak, there's no way those cities were in that part of the world because there's no mining. There's nothing to mine in that area where Sumer, Akkad, and Babylonia and Assyria are located. In the Tigris-Euphrates basin, there are no metals. So these histories of the Anuna and this great metallurgical race, they were somewhere else before the cataclysm. And this is the deal about Sumerian history. The beginning of Sumerian history begins with Enki arriving on the shores with a ship full of men. And when they arrived later in Babylonia, it was Oannes who arrived on a ship. And because he came from the sea, they gave him a fish tail, but he had a human face with a beard. So the Anuna are depicted by the Sumerians as tall, alabaster skinned. They had lapis lazuli eyes, which is a blue semi-precious stone, and they had long flowing beards. The Sumerians themselves could not grow facial hair, and they were people of very short stature. So when these original Anuna appeared in their civilization, it was a shock. But many centuries later, a cataclysm occurred, which basically ended the Sumerian culture. But at the very end of Sumerian culture, a new god appeared. For a long period of time, the Sumerians had their pantheon set in stone. You know it, Anu. The trilogy is Anu, Ea, Enki. But they had a whole host of gods. But at the very end of Sumerian history, they had to introduce a brand new god, and that was Utu Shamash, the sun. And this is because Sumerian history was under a vapor canopy. And only after the day the sky fell, the great flood, the collapse of the vapor canopy, did the sun appear. And the Sumerians, at the very end of their life as a civilization, introduced a new god. Then they fragmented and disappeared into the Akkadians, the Babylonians, and the Assyrians, and the Hittites. So at the same exact time, the Egyptians also had to do the same thing. The Egyptians had no god for the sun and didn't need one. They had a whole pantheon called the Ennead, the 9 gods. Yep. But at the very end of this period, they had to introduce the son of the sun, which is Horus, the son of Osiris. So they introduced the sun at the exact same time on the other side of the world. The ancient American civilizations started their sun calendars. And the first of 4 sun epics was the water sun. It was the very first. And it's because the sun was born from the vapor canopy. So yes, I have to say yes, that the beginning of Sumerian civilization was underground. Not the Sumerians themselves, they're surface dwellers. But the Anuna specifically came from underground. Their first appearance was from a mountain, and they descended the mountain, got on ships, and they appeared in the Near East. This is exactly what we find in the Enochian record. In the book of Enoch, the Watchers appeared coming down Mount Ardus. And it's the same story, but it's just packaged from a different cultural perspective. Right.